So we're continuing this morning with our preaching series, Are You Ready? And my question this morning is, are you ready to share God's joy? So just a show of hands, who could use a little influx right about now of God's joy? I certainly could. And so we're going to be looking at 4 ways that we might experience that joy this morning. And I'm going to start by, you guessed it, the joy of fishing. And so I want to share with you the Mike Clevenger expedition. It was a cold fall morning as we met up at the church, and then we slowly drove out to, I'm not going to tell you the secret spot. And then we got on the water and we began to fish as the fog lifted. And let me just share with you some of the catch, because this for me is part of the joy of fishing, that I get to share with you these wonderful pictures of my catch. So there's one, there was the other one, and then let's keep going because we moved to different, look at those, aren't those nice? Doesn't that bring joy? Look at the joy on my face, right? I was really reeling them in, and Mike was doing such a good job of putting me on the fish, but it didn't stop there. We moved to a different spot, and boom, we were on the fish again. And I tell you, I've got way more pictures from that day than I could put in these slides, but look at some of that. Oh, that one, yeah. That was a nice big one, man. He was so big when he jumped out of the water, he sailed across the water in majestic beauty for like 3 feet wiggling, and then went back in, and I was thinking, this is joy. This is joy, right? Because what did we have in that? We had fellowship, we had food because we brought some snacks, we had fish, we had nature, all the things you need to experience a little bit of God's joy. And if you want to experience this joy yourself, when we have our next 541 youth banquet, we're going to be raffling off one of these trips to this very secret location, and Mike Clevenger will put you on the fish. So if you're a fisherman, be looking out for that in our next banquet. Now, it doesn't have to be fishing. I got to say one more thing. At the end of this day, look at that. Beautiful sailing into the sunset. Anyway, but it doesn't have to be fishing, right? Your joy could be hiking. It could be quilting, some kind of crafting. It could be cooking. The point is, God gives us the joy of very unique personal interests. So when we're feeling down, let's lean into those gifts God gives us. Let's let ourselves enjoy those gifts and abilities. But next, as we see in our Old Testament reading from today, there is the joy of a godly spouse and family. So we read here in the Old Testament, Proverbs 31, 10 through 30, who can find a woman of worth? Far beyond jewels is her value. Charm is deceptive and beauty fleeting. The woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Now, this is a picture of Lael and I on our 20th year anniversary trip. That was in Victoria. I love that spot. And I just want to say, Lael and I, we're not the perfect couple. We're just a normal couple like everybody else. We go through our ups and downs. We've had our struggles. And you notice that it doesn't say who can find a perfect woman, right? It says who can find a woman. And Lael definitely fits that bill. She is a jewel. And I think it's the idea of a godly family is not a perfect one. It's one that's intentionally pursuing a relationship with God. That's what brings me joy in the house, that my wife intentionally pursues her relationship with Christ. And it is that relationship with Christ that gives her the patience, the love, the mercy, and compassion to be able to put up with somebody like me on a consistent basis, right? But it's not just her that gets that. It's my kids. They are also not perfect, trust me, but intentionally pursuing their relationship with God. And so I love what it says there in Proverbs 23:24. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice, and he who sires a wise son will be glad in him. I love watching my children really pursue the dreams that God has put on their heart. But they don't do it at the neglect of the church. They still come, they still help, they still minister. And I'm so thankful for that. Aren't you thankful when you talk to your kids on the phone and they tell you, yeah, we're going to church this weekend. Or yeah, we're going to do this outreach with the church this weekend. It brings joy to your heart. What about grandchildren? How many grandparents we have out there today? Quite a few, right? It says grandchildren are the crown of old men and the glory of sons as their fathers. You're going to get to experience that joy, I hope and pray, this Thanksgiving as you visit and see your grandchildren either in person or on the phone or through Zoom. And then as I was doing this homily last night, I thought about those who have no spouse, have no family, no children, no grandchildren, and the Lord gave me something beautiful. For those people, I want you to go back and I want you to read Proverbs 31 in a more mystical sense as being about the church. The worthy woman is the church. And all of those attributes are the attributes the church should have. And so we get a wonderful joy and a wonderful look at what a nice, perfect church, the bride of Christ, should look like. So there we have it, right? We have the joy of personal interest, the joy of our godly spouse, family, and our godly church. But there's also the joy of knowing the Bible and its teaching. So in our letter today to the Thessalonians, we see Paul is addressing some fear and trepidation in the congregation. There's times in life when we sing that song, when sorrows like sea billows roll. And it's those who know the Scripture and can point others to the precious promises in them that say, yes, but it is well. It is well with my soul. Because we have the precious promises of Christ. And what does it say in 1 Thessalonians 5, 1 through 2? It says this, concerning times and seasons, brothers, you have no need for anything to be written to you, for you yourselves know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. And Paul was not saying this to scare the church. He went on in that passage to remind them, but you are the children of light. You know this is coming. You can be prepared. You can be awake. And he's pointing them to the hope and the joy they have in knowing what the Bible teaches, knowing the Scriptures, and being able to share it. And that's so important. That's why we have all these youth ministries here at the church. 541, Cuddle Care, Kids Church. Why? So we can train up the young in the Bible in the way they should go and they won't depart from it. And that's why I love 3 John 1:4. I have no greater joy than this, to hear my children walking in the truth. Wasn't it a blessing last week when all the kids came up during the offering and came up and Bishop Jim gave them the blessing? It was a joy. So we have the joy of personal interests like fishing. We have the joy of a godly spouse and family and church. We have the joy of knowing the Bible and its teaching. But then perhaps one of the very rare beauties that we have, and it's a beauty I see so much in this church, so much in you, is the joy of being faithful and dependable. And so in our gospel reading today, we saw the parable of the master who goes away and he leaves his servants with various responsibilities and tasks. And he comes back and he's kind of mixing it all up and saying, okay, where are we at in these things that you were left to do? And what do we read in Matthew 25:21? His master said to him, well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities. Come share your master's joy. And it couldn't be any more plain than that. Christ is explaining to us when we are faithful and dependable with the talents, the treasures, all the things He has entrusted to us to help co-partner in the awakening of the kingdom and the kingdom building enterprise that Christ started so long ago. When we're faithful with those things, when we're in our place, when we show up to be part of the mission, when we're just here in our seats. You know you bring joy to me when you're in these seats, and joy to one another. And so we have the joy of being faithful and dependable. So when we consider this morning, where can we get joy this morning? Amidst everything that's going on in the world, remember, there's joy in those personal interests that God gives you. There's joy in your family, your spouse, or the church, both and. There's joy in the Bible and knowing its teaching, and there really is joy in being faithful and dependable.